Alright guys, this is the beginning of our industrialization unit, and here on the front page we have images of children. These are child laborers, most likely in the coal mines, and this is post-Civil War in the time period from the 1870s up to the 1920s. So we're going to see the rise of industry, and this correlates with the immigration unit that we just finished. So we're going to have all of these new jobs created throughout the United States after the Civil War, and there was an influx of immigrants that's going to fuel the rise of industry. So these two units that we're doing are going to be interconnected. So you're going to see a lot of things that we've already talked about throughout this unit. Okay, so after the American Civil War, which in case you forgot, pitted the North against the South, it was Americans fighting each other. The main issue was slavery, and the South had seceded from the Union. And after the war came to a close, we're going to see the Industrial Revolution, the second Industrial Revolution in the United States, really take off. We're going to see a large number of Americans moving from farms and into cities. And as we talked about, millions of immigrants are going to be pouring into the cities as well. So there will be millions and millions and millions of people looking for work, and there was plenty of work to go around in these new factories that emerged. So by 1914, which is the year World War I began, America's gross national product, it was 8 times greater than it was in the last year of the American Civil War. And that is not a long time period. In case you're wondering, the GNP is the total value of all the goods and services that a country produces. So America emerged by the time of World War I into the greatest industrial power in the world. In order to be an industrial power, you need lots of raw materials, and in the United States, there were plenty. And that's going to be one of the reasons for America's dominance. So lots of timber throughout the United States, especially in the Northwest. Plenty of trees that could be cut down and used. Plenty of coal reserves throughout the nation, both in the East and the West. Iron, which was really important for buildings and for railroads, and more importantly can be used later to turn into steel, and copper, as well as many other resources. So one of the questions was, if these resources are out west, how are you going to get them back east to be used in the factories? And we're going to talk about the railroad a lot in the next video that we get into. But the most important natural resource, debatably, is going to be the use of oil. And the first oil well was drilled in 1859 in Pennsylvania by Edwin Drake. And by 1900, there were oil wells stretching all the way to Texas. So, like we mentioned before, there's a large workforce, and this was another reason for America's dominance. And as you can see, between the years 1860 and 1910, the population of the United States is going to triple. So in a 50-year period, we'll see a tripling of the American population. And of course, more companies now have more people to hire, which means they can make more goods, which means more money can be earned throughout the country. So for the first time in American history now, there are more people working in factories than on farms. And we can see in this image here, we have some coal workers. They're coming out of the shaft, and even though work was plentiful, it was incredibly dangerous, and the pay was not good, which we'll get into as well in class. But the Industrial Revolution is going to bring a lot of positives as well. The next couple sections, we're going to talk about inventors. Many of you may be aware of Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone back in 1874. It's amazing how far the phone has come, even in the last 20 years. But as you can see, this is going to revolutionize the way that people can communicate instantaneously. Thomas Edison, one of the most famous inventors in history, held over 1,000 patents at the time of his death. And very famously invented the light bulb, the battery, the motion picture, amongst many, many others. Alexander Graham Bell is going to form the Bell Telephone Company, which later became the American Telephone and Telegraph Company, which you guys know today is AT&T. And Edison is going to build America's first electric company in New York City, and that's going to change the world as well. Imagine living without electricity nowadays. Not easy. So this free enterprise system where anybody can rise up and become rich, possibly, and start up their own business, their own company, invent something. This all ties into that American dream. So we're going to see other industries growing besides the phone and oil industry. Textile industry, which is clothing, is going to revolutionize the way people live their day-to-day lives. Instead of wearing one outfit or making all of your clothes by hand, now clothing could be bought at a much cheaper rate than before. American homes were now lit and had heat, so they don't have to burn wood around the clock in order to keep warm. And in 1866, a telegraph cable was laid across the Atlantic Ocean, which allowed communication with Europe. So the free enterprise system is another reason for America's dominance. Laissez-faire is a French phrase meaning let it be or let the people do as they choose. And the United States government took this approach in dealing with the businesses. So the idea was let the businesses make as much money as they could and don't get involved in their day-to-day affairs. However, as a result, the workers are going to be mistreated and abused and overworked and underpaid and working under terrible conditions, and the United States government didn't do anything to help them at this time. So this is going to usher in a rise of rich men who are looking to invest in new companies, and we're going to see these men ruling the country and having a tremendous influence over politics. So they're going to have a big influence on the government, which we will talk a lot about when we talk about the Gilded Age. Also helpful to the big businesses was the idea of a tariff, which is a tax on imported goods. And the tariff was going to make products coming over from other countries more expensive. So the idea was people would buy American products, which meant the American businesses were going to profit from it. Southerners typically opposed the tariff because now a lot of factories were down there and they depended on bringing imported goods into the country. But the Northerners were able to get the tariff they wanted when the South left the country during the Civil War. All right, so this is going to conclude our Chapter 5, Section 1 part. Next video, we're going to talk about the railroads. Thank you. So homework is to write one paragraph and just give me your summary of what you learned, what was important about it. Good luck.